Okay, in this 10x relationship video, I want to talk about the pivotal point that comes with consciousness of the sexual template. And so you have mom and you have dad. And the real mom and dad is the person who's inhabiting the feminine position. So the person who's listening more, the person who's responding more, the person who's nurturing more, the person who leads with emotion, the person who is more empathic. So this is the feminine pole, the person that's more accepting. You have the masculine pole, the challenger, the asserter, the speaker. Now, both parents can play both roles, but the relationship in the primary family unit gets exported to the child. In the relationship between the inner masculine and the inner feminine, the right brain and the left brain. In other words, the way masculine energy relates to feminine energy in the original parent template enters the brain as a template for the relationship that masculine energy has with feminine energy. Now, mom and dad exist in a much larger circle, that is the culture. And within Western and certainly American culture, feminine energy sells at 20 cents on the dollar. So, for example, you go and watch an interaction, and there are speakers and listeners. You take a great speaker, and they will be clapped and awarded and celebrated and honored for their speaking capacity. And that's masculine energy. And it's terrific. It's wonderful. What will be ignored in that exchange is the listener. There will be no differentiation within the audience between someone that busily texted and barely got anything, between someone that grasped it on a mental level but didn't feel anything, and the person who lived the talk by letting it enter their heart, mind, and body and just felt it at a very deep level, maybe at a deeper level than the level at which the speaker communicated. Some speakers communicate only from the head, and so when they talk, they can talk very incisively, and yet they're not transmitting from a full heart, mind, body position because they're not in that position. They've grasped something in their head, and they're transmitting what they've heard and grasped by connecting their voice and their brain with minimal feeling, with minimal extrapolation, and without letting their body sink into the message. It's something I do all the time. And I'm still learning, how do I bring my body up to speed with the lightning fast pattern recognition that's going on in my brain? Now, if dad in the masculine role humiliates and eviscerates mom in the feminine role, this happened a lot in my family where, everything my mother said was dumb. And they both cooperated in that dynamic. My mother would lie and uphold absurd positions, And my father would eviscerate her. And so that was a dance between the masculine and feminine. And there's a part of my feminine that's learning what it is to be feminine. It's not to be fully present. It's not to be integrated with reality. It's to expect evisceration. It's to expect to be misunderstood. It's to be marginalized. It's to be demeaned. And in the internalization of the dynamic between masculine and feminine, in this case, in mom and dad, meaning my mother was definitely more feminine, the conversation between the inner masculine, and one of this ties into the dance with the used child, the child that is used to support a parent's position as opposed to served by the parent to grow into a healthy individual. The used child, in this case, used to affirm my father's dominance and superiority, is also enlisting the masculine side within me to affirm the dominance of the feminine in me that's modeled after my mother. And so I'm learning how to demean and abuse myself as I'm simultaneously learning how to be demeaned and abused, and how to behave in a way necessary to be demeaned and abused. You know, there's a dance between the abused and the abuser. And both people can step out of the dance if the conditions are favorable. There's an underlying force that's holding the dance in play. If that force is lifted, then both people really do have the freedom to step off. It's important to understand these intergenerational forces, because until we activate and have access to the mass needed to resist something, I mean, it's fine to say there's a 10-ton weight on you and you can just lift it. Except when you push at 200 to 300 pounds, it doesn't lift. And so to say, you feel free, lift it, is meaningless until you have the several ton lifting capacity to lift off the weight. You need conditions to be favorable. This is one of the things healers provide in order to lift the weight that's holding a pattern in place that you look at it. You look at the dynamic with abused spouses, and it's like, why don't they walk away? Well, it's not just a physical dynamic. There's a psychological dynamic where a psychological weight has been placed that reinforces the choice. And one must go through psychological terrain of immense intensity in order to exit the terrain of the abuse stance, of the abuse cycle. And the same is true as with a child, meaning as a child wanting to stick up for my mother and fight my father, I not only need to fight my father, I need to fight both of them. Because in an abusive relationship, both people have an investment in the abuse. There's no human being that is really dumb enough to say, I just prefer pain when I've got an easy alternative. No, there's a dynamic of collusion. And the force that holds that dynamic in play has to be lifted before the abused can walk away. In the case of a child, the child must lift that force for both parents, which they cannot do. This is why the wound moves forward rather than the child lifting it backward. The child cannot do it. They therefore have the force from both parents molding them and shaping their own relationship between their inner masculine and their inner feminine. Now, the shape that the inner masculine and the inner feminine take will be externalized in romantic relationship as an adult. Unless, between the childhood and the adulthood, a force equal or greater to the force that held the dynamic in play and in place is able to lift the psychological weight out of the dimension and provide the individual, the conscious individual, with the freedom to create a new pattern. And what great healers do of all kinds is they temporarily lift the weight so that the individual can assert their own healthy, energetic pattern of heart and soul, of, in some languages it's called the astral body, the etheric body. The energy bodies that are the resonant guides for the development of the consciousness are different from the shape that is pushed on to those energy bodies by the weight of the past, by the weight of past generations. Now, this pattern determines sexual arousal. Now, here's what I mean is, for there to be life, you need the balance of the masculine and feminine, the yin and the yang. They need to have a relationship with one another. For one to survive, to live, to get through the day, your left brain and right brain needs to have a relationship with one another. The conscious and the unconscious, the left and the right, the inner and the outer, they need to be able to breathe back and forth. However, the relationship is choreographed by the template set in the original masculine and feminine dynamic with the parent and the child. Now, sexuality accesses the emotional template. One of the big complaints that all kinds of people have who are trying to live a conscious life is that when they do the thing that seems decent or respectful or right, they're not experienced as sexually attractive. And I want to talk about that because so if we have, masculine and feminine up here on the, on the right and the left, and we have these different ports. If we think of the masculine energy as a truck that backs up, let's say you're backing up into Safeway. You've got a loading dock. If you back up into a loading dock and nobody's there to unload you, there's no flow. You back up, there's no release. There's nothing that happens. So you have to move out of that loading dock and you back up into this loading dock. And again, no one's there to unload. You back up into this loading dock and there's a little bit of a trickle. And you back into this loading dock, and there is a flood of information. There's a flood of energy. There is a rush of energy. Now, it is the rush. It is the multidimensional flow of energy that creates sexual chemistry. The flow of negative and positive meeting, wherever they meet, is where there is sexual chemistry. Now, if your brain is wired that the masculine and the feminine connect by being dominated, because that is your inner conversation. Your masculine tells your feminine, you're an idiot. What a fool. You're an idiot. What a fool. You're an idiot. What a fool. And the feminine in you says, I'm an idiot. I'm a fool. I'm an idiot. I'm a fool. You've got a connection there. They meet there. You're a fool. I'm a fool. You're an idiot. I'm an idiot. There's flow. The flow is what creates sexual chemistry. It's not the content of the flow. Sex is a neutral energy. If you have a sincere port inside, if the feminine has a sincere port inside that says, I'm a fabulous person, I like myself, and I'm great, and the masculine shows up and says, you're a fabulous person, I like you, and you are great, there is flow that goes back and forth. But this flow is not determined by normal level rationality. In other words, if you've witnessed your survival being predicated on your protectors and providers interacting with you're a piece of shit, yes, I'm a piece of shit, or more subtly, see, because what's in play here is the feminine, it's not the male-female. So, for example, in a conversation, the conversation that meanders luxuriously to a well-rounded exploration of the topic is a feminine conversation. The feminine is about the journey. It's about the circle. The masculine is about the point. So it's not about gender at this level. If every time someone brings up a well-rounded, interesting conversation, someone else dominates and says, get to the point. What's the point? What's your point? And the feminine capitulates. Doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman. Capitulates and gets flustered and apologizes because the feminine doesn't have a point. It has a journey. The message is that both people agree that the masculine is superior to the feminine. That both people agree that you should apologize if you can't get to the point. And the message is that the feminine is less valuable than the masculine. Now, the truth is, scientifically, they're equal. And yes, when the house is on fire, you don't want the feminine energy talking about all the feelings. You want to know where's the infant in 2 seconds. Simultaneously, when you're trying to do healing work and build relationship, you don't want to get to the point. You want the feminine energy. You already know what the point is. I want to fuck you. I do or don't want to be fucked. You can get to that point. You want to fuck? Yes or no? I don't want to waste my time. Or you can have the journey. Now, in a chauvinistic culture, the underlying message is that whoever, male or female, is occupying the feminine position is lower ranking. How lower ranking and how that plays out is determined by the parental template. This is internalized by the child, who must then go out and seek another person when they grow up to have that conversation with. And the unconscious conversation is going to be identical to the internalized conversation. They're going to find someone who is comfortable occupying this side of the role or this side of the role, but they both have a similar view towards the feminine energy. So you have some, stereotypical biker dude, etc. that's, I don't like that attachment stuff. That's for pussies. I just like to fuck. Now the woman that's going to connect with that conversation, and in that conversation the man is owning the masculine side of his inner dialogue. He's going to connect with a woman who takes pride in being similarly chauvinistic. I'm not like those pussies that have feelings. I know you don't want one of those wimps. I'm not like that. I'm not feminine. I'm a guy, meaning I'm masculine. And I want you to fuck me. And I want you to use me. And I don't have any feelings. And I'm going to be low maintenance because we both understand that masculine energy is more valuable than feminine energy. And I feel superior as a woman because I'm leading with my masculine energy and I'm shaming and scorning my feminine. Sure, there are personas in there that might want some gentleness, that might want the commitment of honor, that might want time to talk about feelings. But I've already had my inner dialogue conversations with those feminine parts. And I've said, get lost, you losers. Just like the abuse that happened between mom and dad. Get lost, you losers. I disown you. I despise you. I want nothing to do with you. I am masculine. And so the masculine role is one of dishonor. Now, you try and connect with the tenderness in a woman who is chauvinistically masculine, and you will earn her scorn. I don't fuck guys like you. I fuck real men who pound that pussy. Get the fuck out of here, you wimp. In other words, she's occupying the masculine role with scorn and rage towards her own inner feminine, her own inner child. The man is coming up showing honor to her own inner feminine and her own inner child. And she wants to punch him with the same intensity that she experienced the beatings of her mother and the scorn she developed towards her mother for being so weak, for not being able to stand up. And she wasn't going to be one of those weak, fucked up women. And she was going to find a real man like her dad. But she would be better than her mother. Disown that. So the guy that shows up at this port, fuck you, get lost. Shows up at this, how about a debate? How about a dance, a conversation? Nah, that's not me. I'm efficient. I'm a go-getter. Should see me walk. I'm always busy, So, who's the guy that's going to be attractive in this inner dialogue? The one who's even more busy and even more powerful and da-da-da-da-da than she is. Now, what I'm getting at here is this is neutral. Whether two people get together to beat the shit out of the inner feminine, or two people get together to honor the shit out of the inner feminine, whether they get together to express their self-loathing, whether they get together to express their love, their beauty, it's completely neutral. For sex to have chemistry, all you need is there to be someone to unload the energy on the other side. It can be misogynist energy. It can be energy filled with hatred. It can be ambivalent energy. Gee, this feels good, but I don't like who I am. You see, and then you have this tension between the consciousness, the field of consciousness around the individual, and the pattern that they've been asked to carry. Now, one of the best ways to understand the template of the inner masculine and the inner feminine is to explore pornography. Why? First of all, you've got secrecy, right? And a great deal of morality and identity is public persona and public performance out of fear about what someone else is going to think of you. I would never, ever, in a million years admit to my mother or my dad or my boyfriend that I find watching a woman being fucked by a dog interesting. No. But it's kind of interesting. Wow. What about this other dog? You know, it's like you lift the veil of secrecy. You know, you give complete secrecy and thus no accountability. And it's like, well, nobody's really getting hurt, and you know, it's just watching a video. It's not me, but wow, that's interesting. You find the place in your porn spectrum where you have immense energy and rush. That's the non-politically correct. You see, political correctness says what the ports should be. The man should behave like this, the woman should behave like this. This is the correct way for men and women to interact. This is self-respecting. You see, the feminists may be furious at the woman who wants to, be berated and harassed in sex. Stand up for yourself. This is how you should be. The actual woman is going to follow her inner template unless consciousness is brought to reshape the template, which means you first got to lift off the psychological weight of the family system. You've got to realize you're now an adult, and even though that family system could have killed you, almost did kill you as a child and shaped you into this shape, it's not who you are. It's, when we lift that weight off, we return to symmetry. Why? Because it's easier. It takes effort to dominate something. It's much easier to partner. It takes effort to lie. It's much easier to partner around the truth. Making someone feel like shit takes work. Enjoying life is easy. It's harder on a technical level to create imbalanced, abusive relationships. They're not particularly rewarding. They take a lot of energy. There's only one reason they keep happening. And that's because the psychological weight of the family system, understanding the grief that's pent up in there. What was the emotion that your father would never feel? What was the point that your mother would never look at? That you knew for certain, because of her behavior, that she would rather die than look at that issue. She'd go white, she'd turn away, she'd lie, she'd cheat, she'd do this, she'd hit you. She'd do anything but look at this issue. Because what your mother's doing in that, and you give up and you say, okay, Mom, you don't have to look at that issue. Okay, Dad, you never have to feel helpless around me. When you back off so that they never have to enter that domain of the psyche that they're too terrified to enter, you do so with the acknowledgement that it means death to go into that. And you block it off in yourself to protect your parents. You watch women go to the absurd lengths of coaching their boyfriends or husbands on how to deal with their father. And what they're doing is they're trying to pass on their abuse contract to their husbands. And in, profoundly unhealthy dynamics, the woman is more loyal to the father than to the husband. And she will chide the husband on having the audacity to upset her father by telling the truth and not tippy-toeing around the absurd stupidity of the family system. And she really believes, she's still a child, she really believes that she's going to die if she says, Dad, you've been a fucking liar in this area your entire life. You're a fucking coward to ask your kids to pretend like we don't get it. There isn't a single fucking person in this house who doesn't know exactly what's going on here. And we are all colluding to make sure you don't have to think this thought and say this thing because we're scared of your violence and because we take pity on your helplessness. Now deal with that as a grown-up man, or get the fuck out of my life, because I'm not lying for you anymore, Dad, and none of my boyfriends and husbands are going to have to lie for you either. Wake up or get the fuck out. That's an adult treating a father like an adult, in the full awareness that many dads and many moms never were adults and will collapse or, they'll do anything but actually deal with it. They'll disown the child. They do all the time. That's the psychological weight I'm talking about. You've got to be willing and able to face that down. The end of the family. The little girl in you saying, I killed my dad. I'm going to be unloved forever. I'm unlovable. Because that's what little girls feel at 5 years old when they run into this wall and start being asked to lie to protect their parents. You have to face it. Will you face it, or will you draw your partners into your own tangled web of contracts and lies to protect the dysfunction of the family system? You learn what the system is through exploring sexual flow without censorship. So you create your secrecy, you do it in your way like nobody's looking, it's not doing any harm, etc. That's when you'll see, I just get off on pounding the shit out of little kids. I want to humiliate that woman every fucking way that I can. And kick her in the face and tell her she's a piece of shit. Ugh! That's the charge, right? Aha! You just learned something if you can untangle that. This is my family system. The masculine in me has been trained since birth to humiliate the shit out of the feminine in me and then kick her in the face for not being strong enough to stand up to me and being complete worthless. That's my training. Wow. For there to be sexual flow then and real connection and chemistry in this template, I'm going to have to find a woman who at her deepest core pattern level, no, not in public, no, not when company's over, no, not early on dating, but a woman who knows that in her feminine core she's a piece of shit, that she deserves to be punished and dominated and kicked in the head and told to get over it. Then we put on our nice polite masks Oh, that was great sex. And it is. And it is. It's great fucking sex. Meaning, it's transcendent. There's multidimensional energies, in this case, abusive energies, flowing from the person occupying the masculine pole into the feminine pole. Now, the thing to understand is this goes both ways. Statistically, and in, typical gender dynamics, this is going one way, from the bullying, abusive man who's now currently being villainized in our culture, towards the helpless, innocent, woman who's has nothing to do with any of this, right? So that's the traditional dance. This can scare any conscious individual because you've got the drive to procreate, a strong primordial drive that is like a river. It's an energy. And then the channel is cut by the template between masculine and feminine. The partner is matched because if you don't feel any chemistry, most people disconnect. Now, this is also a key distinction in understanding 10x relationships. If you have an abusive template and you meet a woman that you're not attracted to sexually, you're onto something good. If there's a woman, your mother was abused, or, see, because we have to really make the distinction between, and that's why I like yin and yang. In the yin and the yang, it's not about gender. You can have a fucking bitch of a bossy woman in the masculine role abusing the sensitivity and the femininity in the man. It doesn't matter the gender. What matters is the relationship of masculine and feminine energy in the family template, which typically defaults to the cultural template. And we are in a culture where feminine energy is literally a low-ranking position. If you buy a unit of masculine energy, you pay $1, you get a unit. You buy a unit of feminine energy, sometimes it's given to you for free, other times it's you get 4 or 5 units of feminine energy for the same $1. You look at, how this translates into exceptional nannies, exceptional babysitters, exceptional caregivers that have 1,000% higher quality feminine energy than anyone else in that house. And the sociopathic dick, man or woman, that's making millions is highly masculine as a general rule. And that caregiver may make 100 times less and be seen as a little bit, like, come on, do your thing, get that out of here. The comedy in America is rife with this hostility. And we find it funny because it speaks to our imbalance. We're very, very comfortable and enjoy the laughter of the sociopathic man putting up with the femininity in the woman he wants to fuck and must manipulate and do this in a very masculine and sociopathic way because women are so difficult. As opposed to that feminine energy is magnificent. And I'm the small one. I am the masculine energy that needs to learn how to respect that. But the key, and why this is such a big deal, is we have split the culture of respect from the underlying chauvinistic template. In other words, we raise children in a chauvinistic culture and in largely chauvinistic homes with men and women who downgrade and devalue the feminine and elevate the masculine, and who compete to be more and more masculine so that they can get social rankings, teaching the child that their inner feminine is a piece of shit, so that when the masculine that is honorable approaches that woman, she doesn't understand it. She doesn't get it. And in deeply ingrained chauvinistic women, the degree to which the feminine is honored in them by their man or prospective mate is to the degree that they will push that man away. This is incredibly important to understand because it's a source of a lot of pain. Now, why is this happening? Well, as part of our chauvinism, you learn almost nothing about emotional chemistry. You don't learn a single hour of emotional chemistry in school. You don't learn a single hour of relationship compatibility techniques in school. You don't learn the art of relating, the art of honoring, the art of feeling, the art of expressing feeling. You don't learn the most fundamental aspect of our lives. And we call it school because feminine energy has such low status in our culture within men and women that we literally think in a science level absurdity. I mean, science is rationality, right? So rationality says, how much do you use algebra every day? Wake-up call. I've never used algebra in my entire life except at school. Well, that must be really important, right? Study the things correlated to how useful they are in daily life, right? The absurdity of our education protocol is staggering. Because when you go over to relationships and say, how many people did you relate to on some level today? How much does your income depend on your successful relationships? How much skill do you want in being able to have a great marriage, a great relationship with your child, a good boss relationship, feel good with your colleagues, your clients, whatever it is? Do you want to have more good relationships? How many times in your life have you wanted to be better at relating? Well, I have a great idea. Let's not study relationships at all. Let's be complete and utter idiots, elevating a masculine science of mathematics above a relational science that is feminine, and just throw science completely out the window by not correlating the amount each skill would be used in daily life. Or we patronize the feminine sciences by saying, well, it's a feminine skill, feelings and stuff. Everyone does that. Why bother learning? Why bother learning the art of listening? Now, of course, we need to learn the art of speaking, because that's masculine. But the art of listening, who cares? Nobody notices the quality of your presence and silence. Chauvinism, chauvinism, chauvinism. So we've created this dynamic where every child in a Western culture is raised a chauvinist, which means they're raised to feel better about themselves when they occupy a masculine position and lead with masculine traits, getting to the point, being succinct, being organized, getting things done, killing it. making that point across, dominating, making more money. Nah, you're a winner. Go get her, girl. And we raise our daughters this way. Go get her, girl. Don't let those men tell you what to do. You tell them what to do. You be more masculine than they are. That's my girl. Because I'm a chauvinist. I'm going to teach you to be a chauvinist and be a winner in a world that will measure you higher if you win the chauvinistic game. Well, those chauvinistic women have a dirty secret, meaning the sex is never going to be so good as it is. Someone has to enter the feminine pole. You know, that old thing, if a tree falls out in the forest and nobody's there, did it happen? Was there a sound? If someone speaks and no one's listening, was there communication? If I initiated, said, hey baby, I want to fuck you, and no one says yes, does sex occur? The yes is the feminine pole. The opening is the feminine pole. And what goes on in these chauvinistic, misogynistic relationships as an agreement is a highly chauvinistic woman who hates and is ashamed of her inner feminine picks a slightly more competent chauvinistic, misogynistic male who impresses her with his ability to dominate, to lead, to speak, to get things done, to have trappings and high ranking in the culture. And so she agrees to occupy the feminine pole in the relationship only with him because he's a badass. You have earned the right with your high masculine misogynistic status to dominate my feminine. And I'd be proud to be fucked and used in whatever way you want because I respect you because you're even more misogynistic and chauvinistic than I am. And we both agree that masculine energy is where all the value is at. You look at a Condoleezza Rice and a George Bush. You know, this competition to be highly masculine, to be important because of one's impact. I had impact on you. You didn't have any impact on me. No. I was too busy. This is the one-upmanship that goes on. So we have a great sadness because either you have people in these politically correct relationships that feel dissociated because they know it's a lie. It's not relating to their inner template. Or you have people in relationships where the people they're most attracted to, where they feel the most sexual flow is with a prostitute. Why a prostitute? Because they can just bang the shit out of that prostitute and feel like, well, I'm not a bad person because I was paying for it. I would never do that with my wife. But I can't have great sex with my wife. Because someone like her, I couldn't treat her like shit. She's a mother. You know, this tension is born out of this original split in a culture. And Asian cultures are more feminine, Western cultures are more masculine. The Western countries have dominated the Asian countries. Bombs, wars, that's the relationship the West has with the East. Colonialization, wars, dominance. And the respect that Asian cultures are getting is not because we've woken up and realized that it's superior. You see, we have never even considered that it might be superior for people to have little bamboo huts, to smile a lot, to be healthy, to have loving families, and screw technology, and to have a healthy, vital relationship with the earth. This would never occur to a chauvinist. You can't kill people as easily as I can. You can't transmit information as easy as I can. You can't drive as fast as I can. I'm better than you because I'm more masculine. No, I cannot do any of those things, but I don't need to. I have a better relationship with the earth. I have a better relationship with myself. I love my body. I feel great. I feel relaxed. I sleep 8 hours a day. I have no debt. I have no mortgage. I love my country, and I'm happy. What a fool, says the chauvinist. What a fool. You'd take that simple little life when, look at my nuclear missiles. You think that's good? Just wait till I drop napalm on you and burn the shit out of you. See? Who's important now, right? The chauvinistic, misogynist masculine is epitomized by the dark shadow of the West invading, patronizing, stealing children, dominating, imposing religion. It's a shithole of abuse after abuse after abuse from the masculine to the feminine on a global scale. And then we raise up hearing that we're number one, right? Why? Because we dropped more bombs. Because we dominated. That's who you want to be. You don't want to be those nice friendly Asians. We cut them up with machetes for gold when we found them in the Dominican Republic. We burned the Native Americans alive. We gave them diseases and blankets. We trashed agreements. We shot their animals. We're number one, right? Chauvinist pigs who have never questioned reality outside of the paradigm of chauvinism. To wake up and realize the gift of feminine energy, the gift of interconnectedness, the gift of sharing, the gift of the circle, the gift of life, the pleasure of receiving that gift. It's never occurred to us. Now, the way that we look at the world is through a cultural lens, unless we consciously step out of the culture. And that's why this is such a big deal. As long as you value the culture, you will choose between political correctness and poor flow and dissociation, or great sensuous sex reenacting the abuse cycle that feels comfortable. It'll be very confusing. Your best sex will be with a prostitute or someone that you feel comfortable within your frame of value arrogance, dismissing as unimportant. Poor little fool. Of course I didn't tell her the truth. She's 20 years old. She wanted to hear that. I mean, what? But boy, was she a good fuck. I fucked her and I fucked her and I fucked her. And then, you know, she wasn't smart enough to realize that, did she really think I'd want to have anything to do with her? Me with all my mental gyrations? Me with my Porsche and this and that and the other? I'm on top. And there are literally women who admire and find a man more attractive for talking that way than before. And they're happy to jump on and play that game. I'll be lower maintenance than her. I won't be such an idiot. You can fuck me too. And it's sick. It's sick because in any system that gets unbalanced, so we got a 5-to-1, this beautiful circle that creates health and well-being becomes an enormous watermelon. You try and drive a bicycle with a watermelon. It's very, very clunky. it's the core reason why in Western countries, like you take America, the more inefficient a country, the more energy it takes to create a unit of well-being. There's not any fool at any level who doesn't want well-being. Now, there are misogynist, men who find their greatest eroticism being tortured. The femdom dynamic where, powerful men in corporations who have dominated their feminine so effectively that they have been elevated within a chauvinistic system as the key dominator and made hundreds of millions of dollars poisoning, dominating, etc., the feminine. Whether it's, spreading lies in order to sell products through advertising, putting chemicals into the water like DuPont. You have these top CEOs. And what gives them the sense of release and pleasure is to hire an expensive woman for cash to whip the shit out of them. To reenact the cycle and bring symmetry. So I dominate the feminine in my life. My greatest pleasure is to hire a masculine woman so that I can be the beaten mother that you dominate, that the masculine in me dominates. I want to externalize that relationship. And these men want to be beaten. They want to be humiliated. They want to be raped because it completes the circle. They beat, and they, in their masculine persona, they beat, humiliate, dominate the feminine in all levels. But then they want to switch into their feminine side sometime. And so, in order to switch into their feminine side, they've got to find a woman who will beat the shit out of them. And they will pay them great sums of money to reenact that ritual and complete the circle. Now they're whole again. I'm the woman being dominated. I'm the male that's dominating. I'm the masculine that's hurting you. I'm the feminine that's being hurt. Now I know both sides of the coin in a relationship of abuse, of violation. It takes an enormous amount of energy, and many in this system are absolutely miserable. A United States person will generate 101 tons of garbage over a lifetime. That's stuff that, because they exist, got hauled off to a landfill and buried in a big hole in the ground. 100 tons for a little 200-pound person. Or is burnt into the atmosphere to pollute the air with all the heavy metals and all that. And America is one of the most unhappy countries per unit of energy invested. So it's an incredible explosion of consumption with a stable to mediocre level of well-being. There are literally tribes in the Amazon that will not leave a single pound of garbage when they die, that won't use a single ounce of electricity, who have more vitality and joy on a daily basis than the average American. That is a stunning calculation. Energy invested and energy wasted per unit of well-being is the only intelligent metric of intelligence. To waste energy to have less well-being is absurd, and we do it every single day. To resolve and heal the split, the reason I go into this in some deep level, we need to understand chauvinism at the core. We need to understand that, hey, you've been raised in a Western culture, you are a chauvinist. Many people raised in Eastern cultures are also chauvinists. There are literally people that I meet as I travel around the world who are happier than me, who have better relationships than me, who pollute the environment less than me, who are kinder than me, who think they are less than me because they have bought into the chauvinism they've been fed by Western media, where the hero is the white guy, right? The dominant one. Now it's the white woman or the politically correct black woman, right? It's still the chauvinist. I kick those guys' asses. As chauvinistic as they come. You've just decided, okay, we all know that masculine energy is superior to feminine energy. Fine. Men have got to be the masculine heroes all the time. Fine. Women will get to play those roles now, even though their bodies are less suited to them. Women will now be the kick-ass heroes that dominate men, and and that's moving towards equality. We'll both be equally chauvinistic and belittle the feminine. And then you can't say men are better than women or women are better than men. It's a dumb game. Takes a lot of energy, creates very little flow. It's a step in the right direction. Women have never been inferior to men. Feminine energy has never been inferior than masculine energy. But until we realize that, taking a feminine position means to lower ranking in the eyes of both men and women. I know this because when I encourage and make time for women to cry in the West, my status in their eyes goes down. What high-status women do when they start crying in their presence is they apologize for the audacity of bringing feminine energy into the interaction. They apologize that they lost control and that they had feelings. They turn away, and if they have any decent self-respect, they get control of their feelings and pretend that nothing happened, that that's just their weak femininity that bubbles up from time to time. We're all human, right? And they carry on making a witty performance that has nothing to do with what they're feeling. And then if I was the reason that they were more emotional than they normally are, then they avoid me because we can't possibly show up as low status and have emotions. And any guy that would like that isn't the kind of guy I'd like to spend time with. It's a tragedy on a global, family, national, and couple scale. And it infects our children. When you dive deeply into this and feel the grief, when you find the part in you that is aching with pain at all the abuse that she has taken, male or female, doesn't matter your gender, your feminine has been treated like shit. And the worst of it, if you're a man, is going to be from other women. Other women, when you are vulnerable and need them emotionally and sexually, who despise you for your neediness, are going to hurt you the most. Other women are going to attack your femininity and the honor of your femininity the most. If you're a woman, it may also be other women who attack that the most because they hate it in themselves, because they're trying to be super masculine, and they hate their constant eruption of beautiful feminine energy, not because there's anything wrong with it, but because it will reduce their value ranking within a cult that is not scientific, that is not intelligent, that is not fair, that is pathologically insane, and will take no responsibility for it. One of the greatest pains I've dealt with as a man is finding the ports in my female partner's sexuality. I remember the first woman who trained me to humiliate her. Do you want to train a man to humiliate you, woman? It's easy. You laugh more when he humiliates you. You give him more time and praise when he humiliates you. You find him sexy and you fuck him when he humiliates you. I had a wonderful woman who I really loved, And I was so curious why I was becoming increasingly misogynistic. I'd never seen that side of myself. But pretty soon I was coming up with unusually cutting jokes to make her look like a complete fucked up idiot, and she loved it. She had all the time in the world for me. She laughed at moderately funny jokes as if they were amazing. Fuck me, use me, whatever you want. I remember getting so angry at her I wanted to slap her one day. She said, "Oh, that's fine. I've had other men want to slap me. You can slap me." And I pulled away. Not because the sex wasn't phenomenal. It was. Not because I didn't love her, but because when I brought attention to this pattern and said, look, there's only one reason that I'm becoming more and more sadistic in our relationship in a way that I've never become with any other woman. You feed me and you reward me for abusing you, and you punish me for treating you right. I want a woman who will reward me for treating her right and will punish me for hurting her. Because we are trainable animals as human beings, and that's the person I want to be. Yes, I can fight this on my own, but if you're not on board, I'm going to lose this in the end. And I'm going to become someone I don't like. And she fought me. She was the most submissive person you could possibly imagine. You know, sex in any time, whatever you want. I took a stand for her femininity. And boy, was she there in a moment to punch the, how dare you? She denied it. That's when you saw the real fight. Her whole warrior persona had been trained by the early men in her life to attack herself and anyone who tried to defend who she was with dignity was going to get the full wrath of her own internalized abuser. We've got to understand men and women are equally part of the problem. That the culture is the underlying culprit with its innate chauvinism. And if you can't work through the unhealthy template of chauvinistic abuse, you will always be left deciding between having phenomenal sex that's at odds with who you want to be and being loving and not connecting. When these two come together with a deep healing, you have a 500% explosion in healthy chemistry and transcendent growth inside and out. Because to solve the problem within a marriage, you have to solve it within yourself. And with your inner masculine and your inner feminine in a conscious team, you are unstoppable. And you are healed of one of our culture's deepest and most insidious pains. And I honor your courage if you decide to step out on this path, because it will be hard. And in many cases, you will be alone, and you may need to end a relationship with someone who will fight you for honoring their feminine essence. Good luck.